This album is truly nuts. This is an absolutely fucking wild album. I feel like my intro, I wasn't very hyped up, but I am hyped to talk about this record because it's insane.
One, it's as weird as we're going to get, probably. I don't think anybody went as weird as System of a Down.
No.
I'm not sure, but most people stayed in like some sort of range. But two, any criticism of them is going to get us yelled at because they are, again, like the Deftones, still super beloved,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's weird to me because to me, like I agree with you. Like I think that System of a Down had the same thing as Deftones where it felt like they were kind of like above nu metal. Like they were doing nu metal, but they were like, people thought, okay, yeah, I listened to this, but this is pretty cultured. Like I don't listen to Limp Bizkit. I mean, they're over there. He's talking about breaking stuff. Like, come on. I'm talking about the over arresting of people on narcotics charges. That's what I'm talking about, Like I think System of a Down was like a dumb band it was like a smart band for dumb guys.
Yeah.
Like they were like the band that nu metal guys could be like, no, like I fucking know stuff, man. Like I get it. It's kind of it's like what Rage were doing, but like dumber than that, like much dumber.
Yeah. It's like I don't know if they're dumber than, because I think I consider them smarter than Rage Against the Machine, but maybe I'm wrong. Rage Against the Machine is a band that I think comes off like they read 5 books,
Yeah.
And System of a Down seems like artsy dudes that like actually know about stuff.
Right.
So I don't know who I consider smarter really, but System of a Down also did the smart thing of like, this is something I would do, right? Like where you say, I'm really interested in politics and then like write 1 or 2 politics songs and then make the rest of the songs about like pizza pie, as you said before we recorded.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's from Steal This Album. That's not from Toxicity. That was a B-side, Brian. Okay, it couldn't make it onto this record, which has songs about group sex, and that is funny to me only because of the repurposing of that song in the trailer for The Secret Life of Pets. Where like,
I do not know that.
Yeah, so The Secret Life of Pets, the cartoon that came out from DreamWorks, the main trailer for that features like because the whole thing of that movie, it's kind of like Toy Story. It's like once the owners of the pets leave the house, the pets get into mischief and whatever, and then they try to act normal when their owners come home. So the trailer is showing that. So it's like the owners leave and then they turn on the stereo and the stereo is playing Bounce. And so,
oh shit.
Yeah. And so it's just like Bounce, and then it's doing the like pogo, 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 pogo. And then there's like the like little dog is like jumping like up and over the screen. And then someone like opens the door. Like it's like I think the owner maybe, or someone comes back in and they like shut the stereo off like really quickly. And then they leave again. And then they like turn it back on. There's like Bounce, pogo, 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 pogo. And like the song is very clearly about like, having sex for drugs or whatever, but they were just like, yeah, whatever, we'll put it in our kids movie because it says pogo in it a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's basically a kid's song,
Yeah, when you
it's
get
like
down
a
to
nice
it.
little thing you play when you're putting your kid to bed.
For sure. Well, to me, like, okay, you were saying last month when we reviewed Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park that was children's music. Like, to me, System of a Down is almost more children's music than Linkin Park is. Not that I think that 11-year-olds were listening to it, but just in the way that the music is done. It just that very, like, it's got a lot of like fast, 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 slow, fast, 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 slow. Like, that's every song.
Right. But I think, like, I know when I first heard the album with Sugar on it, their first album, I did not like it at all. And it took me some getting used to these guys. These guys are like for a more refined nu metal palette, I think.
Okay. So you think that this was you had to train yourself to like this. This is like you had years of Applebee's and then someone took you to a high-end restaurant and then you're like, "Oh shit."
This is like prog rock in a way to me, like because I went through a phase of my life where I really liked the Mars Volta.
Sure,
we
all did. We all went through that phase.
I don't like any other songs over 2.5 minutes, basically, you know? If a song goes over 2.5 minutes, I'm like, can we get this like show on the road here? I think it's time for a new song.
Let's fucking wrap it up.
Yeah. Or if it's just like a song where I have to sit there and I'm like, this is too weird. That's what System of a Down is. They're pretty short songs, but they're all like really weird. So, I mean, I don't know if this album really would speak to a person like me at that time. You know, it took a little bit of so this came out in 2001.
Yeah.
7 days before 9/11.
That's right.
I don't know if there's a connection there or anything.
There is.
But
Jet Pilot was about 9/11 a week before.
That's true. That's probably true. So this came out then. I assume I was listening to it by that time, or I maybe had to hear Chop Suey for. I think I heard Chop Suey, and I said, "Ooh, I really like that song. I'm gonna get this album."
Yeah, I think
I fell in love with it.
I think Chop Suey was definitely like the gateway drug for a lot of people as far as getting into this record. So let's get into it. You've already kind of talked a little bit about the history. So as we've obviously alluded to, the record we are reviewing this episode is Toxicity by System of a Down, released on September 4th, 2001 by American Recordings and Columbia Records. It was their second album following their self-titled album System of a Down that came out in 1998, and it was very successful. It peaked at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling 220,000 copies in its first week of release. It also peaked at number 1 in Canada. It sold at least 2.7 million copies in the US to date and has sold at least 12 million copies worldwide. And in 2002, the album was certified triple platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America. Crazy.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's crazy. You go.
Yeah, I want to say, like, imagine this, right? You're this band in this genre that is like completely not political, like that all of nu metal was basically yelling about your dad or girls. Yeah. Up until this point, you are a band that is like, we're going to take this form of music and we're going to add some politics. We're going to teach some lessons. And then 1 week after it comes out, 9/11 happens.
Yeah. They're like, hey, we spoke this into power. You guys can't.
Well, it's even like, because I mean, here at least, I don't know what it was like up there, but here it was like people did not want to hear left ideas at that time.
Right.
At all. It was like very not something that you said. I mean, shit, dude, they let the bodies hit the floor off the air just because it said bodies hitting the floor.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah, that list of like songs that Clear Channel banned or whatever is so wild. Like the whole list and the reasons why.
Imagine by John Lennon was on there.
Imagine all the people living in peace, Brian. That's clearly an incendiary song that we have to get off of the air. Truly disgusting.
Think of that with the largest military in the world is what I always say.
Well, and the thing that gets me about this record is that, so some other facts about this is this album was also ranked number 44 on Rolling Stone's 100 best albums of the decade for the 2000s, and it was Spin's album of the year in 2001. So this,
I mean,
record,
I think I agree with that, though. I would have to look at album releases in 2001. But I would say this is a high achieving nu metal album. Like, this is as mainstream as it got. It's almost like a System of a Down. If Deftones, I'm trying to tie these to classic rock people. And I guess like Deftones to me would be Led Zeppelin. System of a Down would be like Bruce Springsteen. You know, like they are like two different types of music,
right? But
they're two different concepts, but they're roughly the same kind of music.
I'm just getting this image of Bruce Springsteen being like, "Wide were the eyes of a horse on a jet pilot."
Well, I think covering politics. First of all, the stuff they were covering was very cool for a guy that's like really, I do a political podcast, and like covering the drug war in the way that they did, well, I think was cool as shit just to say the damn words. A lot of people are like, I wrote this song about the drug war, and then it's like Mrs. Molly's handle of gin, something like that, like where that's just like you're supposed to know that means cocaine,
Mrs. Molly's handle of gin.
That was as good as I could get right there. Not a good improver.
Yeah. You're supposed to know that's cocaine. Just imagining that. Honestly, like I'm so white and I so have never done drugs before that is how I would try to find cocaine at a party. I'd just go up to some sketchy looking guy and be like, "Excuse me, do you have Mrs. Molly's handle of gin?" Like,
I don't know why you would say just another intoxicant.
Yeah. Well, that's the code for everything else. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, it's just like all these songs about the drug war never really did it for me because they didn't just say the words. It's like it doesn't matter if you do a political song if nobody knows what you're talking about.
Sure. And I think I sort of agree with your earlier point that to me, System of a Down sort of brought a bit of credibility in the sense that they were all Armenian, so they had, ties to obviously genocide and things like that, political unrest over there. Like I think in some ways, even though I think all of them grew up in the States mostly, it gave it a bit of a cachet where you're like, okay, these guys have like struggled through some shit, or they have family that struggled through some shit. Like it almost gave them a license to talk about it, or a gravity in a way that like I think that you get from hip hop too, right? It's like that sort of gangster, you feel like, okay, this person like grew up in the hood and they grew up in a really in a poverty situation, and they had a really tough upbringing, and so when they rap about that, it brings some legitimacy to it. And I think System of a Down had that, even though they weren't necessarily rapping about Armenia, but the idea of like them being able to focus a critical lens on America, you felt like, okay, yeah, these guys are in a position where I can accept that they're doing this.
Right. Which again, after 9/11, but like this album should have come out in 2002. Then It would have been like, all right, now we're talking. Like coming out on September 4th, 2001 to me is so fascinating because like the world, like I was just talking about this on Twitter the other day, like all the news in that week, everything on the news was about shark attacks. They're like, we got to stop these shark attacks. What are these fucking sharks doing? They're attacking us a lot. And so like we weren't like engaged at all in anything, and it was almost also like the polarizing politics where it's just like if somebody's on the other side, you hate them. Like this was kind of before that all started too. That started with 9/11. That was like the beginning of where we are now. So this was recorded in a totally different world, but almost feels like it could have been of this time, or of that time. This is one of the more timeless political albums, I think.
It helps. It helps when your lyrics mean absolutely nothing. So you could ascribe them to any political time. I mean, the one song that's like very overtly political is as the one you mentioned, Prison Song, which is the very first song on the album, which is again like so much of this album in 2019 is almost impossible for me to wrap my head around. Like I remember being in high school, I remember Chop Suey coming out and thinking this is the coolest song I've ever heard. I loved it. And then I got the album. I thought the album was incredible and I loved it. But it just like in 2019, you look back and you're like, how is it possible that this was an album that sold 12 million copies and went to number one on the Billboard 200? Like, and literally like even the opening of Prison Song makes almost no sense. You turn on the album and it just goes dun 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 dun, and then Surge whispers, "They're trying to build a prison," and you're like, "What the fuck is happening right now?" Like the album literally starts with one note and 4 pauses of silence, And you're like, how is this the start of a Billboard 200 #1 fucking record? It's like, it blows my goddamn mind. Okay, here's the other songs in the top 5, okay, when this came out. Do you want to guess? We've played this game before. Do you want me to just tell you?
Oh man, 2001.
I'll tell you right now, one of them is a compilation and the other 3 are all female artists.
Well, so now that's what they call music.
That's right. And would you like to guess the number?
I would never be able to guess it. 23.
Now 7.
7?
Now 7.
What are we at now? Now.
I think they've got to 100, haven't they?
I don't know. I'm looking.
I'll look right now, yeah.
But I think, yeah. I'm trying to think.
Looks like they're at
I would imagine Mariah Carey is in there.
Nope. Good guess, though.
They're at 104.
104. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yikes. Like, who's buying? And they go platinum. Like, 103 is gold. 102 is gold. 101 went platinum. 99 went platinum. 98's gone double platinum. 97. Like, they all go fucking platinum. There have been, in the history of now, that's what they call music, there have only been two of them that have not gone platinum.
My daughter bought one when she was like 6 and I yelled at her for it because it's like, what are you doing?
This is crazy. That's nuts. That's a nut stat. Anyway, Mariah Carey, good guess. I would say artists in that vein. I'll say all 3 of them are African American women.
Oh, Lauryn Hill.
No, also a good guess, but I think Miseducation was what, 98, 99?
I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit.
I would have never listened to it back then.
That's fair.
Because here's something with this album, and I'll talk about it after I guess these albums, is like this album truly articulate or shows me how stupid I was in 2001.
Yeah,
that's one of the things this album does to me when I listen to it. But I'm trying to think. Man, Toni Braxton?
No,
Toni Braxton doing it?
She'd have been a little before that, I think.
Geez. Janet Jackson?
Again, a little before that.
Well, no, not before that. Her titty came out on the Super Bowl after 9/11.
Yeah, those are the 2 tragedies of our time. 9/11 and Jennifer Lopez's breast being exposed at the Super Bowl.
It was Janet Jackson. Oh, so Jennifer Lopez is
Janet
one of these,
Jackson,
right?
Sorry. Jennifer Lopez. No, she's at 11.
I'll never figure these out.
So number 2, Alicia Keys.
Oh, I love her.
Number 3, Aaliyah.
I like her too.
Yeah. Number 4 is now 7. Number 5, Mary J. Blige.
Oh, all good though.
All good. Yeah. And
People
this is
have
a
pretty good
weird
taste.
The top 20 at this time is like, this is a very weird thing to me where you can clearly see, if you look at this top 20 at this time, what white people were listening to and what everyone else was listening to. Because, okay, so here are the, I would say, white people representatives in the top 20. System of a Down, now 7. Stained, Linkin Park, NSYNC, Slipknot, Gorillaz, Puddle of Mud, Alien Ant Farm, Enya, and the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack. That's the whites. That's the white 10. Here's everyone else: Alicia Keys, Aaliyah, Mary J. Blige, Maxwell, Afro Man, Jennifer Lopez, Brian McKnight, Juvenile, and the Isley Brothers featuring Ronald Isley.
Oh, such good music. All
great
of that
music
stuff was actually like really good, and all the white stuff was like, I mean, I like it, but I don't think anybody would consider it great.
No. I think that's the one, like, and I say this is what this whole podcast is basically about, like being white and having de facto horrible taste as a result.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Not to make it into a race thing, but I think we can all agree white people have bad taste in everything.
Yeah. So the thing I was thinking about is So I'm looking at just Prison Song, right?
Sure.
Like my analysis of Prison Song in 2019, which is it's very straightforward. It makes perfect sense. And everything he said in that song is true and really good. I mean, the dude is yelling, while research and successful drug policy shows that treatment should be increased and law enforcement decrease while abolishing mandatory minimum sentences, is like, that is all the stuff right there.
For sure.
With a heavy beat. And back then I was singing that those lyrics. I had fucking no idea that they were political
of
or
course.
about like the drug. I just didn't even fucking no thought in my mind that they were anything other than like, yeah, man, prison sucked, dude.
Yeah, like I was 16 when this came out. I was living in a suburb so white it is named White Rock is the name of it. So that's how white it is that it's even in the name of the town where I lived. And I think like to me, I think this was to me as a 16-year-old what the free Tibet thing was to 16-year-olds in like 1996 and 97 who like, you liked the Beastie Boys, you liked Rage Against the Machine. You're like, I don't know what Tibet is, but these concerts whip ass and it seems like it's pretty bad over there in Tibet. And you know what? I really feel for these Tibetans. And I think I was the same. I was just like driving around, going to high school. Again, I've talked about this on the show before, but I had just a pretty great and normal life and nothing was ever wrong. And I was like, yeah, you know what? The prison system in the US is a little bit fucked up now that I think about it. Now that I've been thinking about this. And it is like, it's so hard to wrap your head around like System of a Down coming up with this really fun beat. It's like really aggressive. It sounds really good. And then, yeah, Serge Tankian's whole thing is he's like, So what do you guys think about this lyric? Abolishing mandatory minimum sentences. Like, and it's all like speak song, and it's just so weird.
It does sound like a song, though.
Oh,
that's
for
the
sure.
Fucking thing. The thing that's so crazy about it is he somehow took the words and made them sound like a song.
Yes.
Because those lyrics read like a fucking thesis statement or some shit like that. Like he really packed in a lot of information in that song.
Well, that was it too, right? Like I can just think about being in my car, pardon me, driving around just being like, all research and successful drug policies show that treatment should be increased. And law enforcement decreased while abolishing mandatory minimum sentences, utilizing drugs. Like I'm just singing along in my car, like ooh, do 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 do. But the lyrics are just so bad and rough. Like not bad, but just like so. Like I have no clue about any of these issues, but I'm just It's like the Twitter meme. I'm just like silently nodding, like yes.
That's how I feel now when I listen to him. I'm like, God damn! And again, that line you just stopped on though is like something out of an essay. Utilizing drugs to pay for secret wars around the world is a lyric to the fucking song, and I just what a miracle! Like it feels like Serge Tankian could take any list of words and make them into a song, and that is a skill you don't see very much.
That is definitely, if you look at System of a Down's entire career, then that is exactly what happened.
If Serge Tankian didn't make it in System of a Down, he could be at the carnival and people could hand them lists of words that they like, and he could put a song together for them, sing it, and give him the sheet music, and boom, he's making, $35 a pop, probably.
I'm pretty sure that is what happened on some of their songs. He's like, you know what? Like, it had to be a bet. There had to be a bet. Are you telling me banana, terracotta pie wasn't a bet? Are you telling me that? To me, that was totally someone being like, hey man, I bet you won't say terracotta pie in a song. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? Have you heard every other song I've released? I'll put terracotta pie right in a song, right? I'll name the song terracotta pie. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. He buys like really advanced copy of those magnetic poem things, and
Yeah.
he just fucking throws them across the room. He like grabs a random bunch and throws them across the room. He's like, all right, man, this is the words you got to work with on this one. You know?
I'm gonna cheat here. I'm gonna skip ahead, and because normally we review articles from the time period towards the end of our review, but this is just insane, and we're talking about the lyrics right now. So this is from a Rolling Stone 10 things I bet you didn't know about toxicity. Okay, and this actually came out 15 years later in 2016. But the way Rick Rubin talks about it is it makes even less sense than what is happening in the songs. So this is 10 things you didn't know. Number 2, producer Rick Rubin offered the band crucial feedback on their reliably demented lyrics, even though he had no idea what they meant. And they're talking about some of the lyrics, and then Rick Rubin said Surge didn't have, no, that's about Chop Suey, doesn't matter, but this is his mission statement. I don't know what it means, but I know how it makes me feel, he gushed of the band's linguistic style. It's like a lot of Neil Young songs where the lyrics don't necessarily make sense, but they give you this feeling of something going on. This does that, and it goes from that wackiness of the verse to the epic sadness of the chorus. He's talking about Chop Suey. It's so weird. And listen to how much harmony there is. Vocal harmonies. No one has vocal harmonies.
I thought that was like part of harmonies.
I'm pretty sure
that other people can do it together.
Every band on earth has vocal harmonies. What the fuck is he talking about? Like, maybe that wasn't like a thing in nu metal. Okay, fine. But like, and also too, saying harmonies, like, yes, okay, there are some times where Serge and Darren would harmonize, because Darren's got that kind of weird, wacky ass voice that kind of goes along with Serge's sort of more like operatic style. But also most songs is just Serge singing sort of straight ahead, and then Darren just like shrieking some weird line that makes no sense, like in Prison Song, where Serge Tankian is writing a fucking essay, and then Darren Malakian comes in, he's like, ooh, I buy my crack, I smack my bitch right here in Hollywood. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't,
why did they?
Could you imagine if you were handing in an essay, and this is your essay, utilizing drugs to pay for secret wars around the world. Drugs are now your global policy. Now you police the globe. I buy my crack. I smack my bitch right here in Hollywood. Drug money is used to rig elections and train brutal corporate-sponsored dictators around the world.
Oh, I'm in their head now, John. I am now sitting in their writing session for this album. You jarred something loose in my head, and I can transport myself back to the time when they were writing this and sit in the room with them. And they had a conversation about this song. The lyrics were laid out there, and Serge probably wrote all the smart stuff down, and then he left spots and he said, hey, Darren or Damien, what's his name?
Darren Malakian.
He's like, hey, Darren, put something twisted in there, and then it'll be like real, like neck breaking speed there in the song. And then Darren's like, oh, not only will I put something twisted, it'll be silly too. So people are going to be real fucking turned in, you know? Because I think like I could be in the situation where I'm writing this album, write Prison Song, and think like, this might need something, you know?
Sure, right. It might need a little bit of goofiness to sort of it's like Shakespeare would often start the fifth act of tragedies with some sort of comic scene, because he'd be like, okay, the play has been very heavy up to this point and I'm about to kill everybody, so we should put a little comedy at the start of Act 5 so that people don't hate me when everyone dies after this happens. That was like Darren was like, oh shit, Serge has been going on for like 2 straight minutes about how we're incarcerating a lot of bad people. Maybe I should just, who about my crack got smacked? He's just like, oh yeah, I'll just give a little bit to the people out there who are looking for some juice, and then I will will turn it up. And then I also am imagining them in the studio, and Rick Rubin just takes a big hit of a bong right after this happens. So Darren's like, okay, I think I've got the right lyrics. He adds them to the song. Everyone's kind of like, I don't know if I'm feeling this. And Rick Rubin's like, you know who this reminds me of? Neil Young.
Yeah.
This is
I mean, Neil Young's songs largely make sense to me.
They totally make sense. And the thing is, too, like Radiohead have said, like for Kid A, what they did for some of the songs, because Tom York said he was going through some like insane writer's block, was that he would like write out sentences and then kind of like try to figure a way to like put them together. And like bands like that, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe the full song doesn't make like complete sense, but it's poetic. Like the lyrics are thought out carefully and there's like a poetry to them, whereas like even if they seem a little bit incongruous, it doesn't, it's still nice, it's still beautiful, it's nice, and it's nice to hear. A lot of times bands that do that, it's like good singing, like Tom York, you know, has a pretty famously unique and excellent voice. It's not Darren being like like it's a very different thing.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, I guess we can't like just talk about Prison Song.
No,
though.
we can't.
Because here's the thing about talking about Prison Song, Justified song, great, one of the great political songs I've ever heard. I'm putting it with This Land Is Your Land type stuff.
Yeah,
in my opinion, for our time. So we have to do the rest of this album.
We will. That's the okay. I will. I have a surprise.
That song's the gold standard
for sure,
John.
Okay,
like that song is like it's unfair because it's like basically like if we give this song, if we're rating this song is going to drastically pull the average up on some of these songs
for sure.
But the lyrics on this song are fucking great. You know. Well,
so here's the thing, Brian. We'll get into that. I wrote a poem. I wrote a poem, and I've called it the System of a Down poem. And this is just I've just chosen one line from every song on this record to construct this poem. Okay, so you tell me how poetic this sounds to you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I buy my crack, I smack my bitch right here in Hollywood. Pull the tapeworm out of your ass. Hey, pushing little children with their fully automatics. They like to wired were the eyes of a horse on a jet pilot. Show your people how we died. Father fucker, father fucker, father fucker. They lined up double quick, but just one pogo stick. No circumcisions on the chair. You don't care about how I feel. I don't feel there anymore. Science has failed our Mother Earth. Education, fornication, innuendo, eating seeds as a pastime activity, psycho groupie, cocaine crazy, psycho groupie coke. When you free your eyes, eternal prize.
Oh, that was beautiful, though.
Was it?
It did. It made me feel real good as I was going through it. I was like, those are all like great sentences. I feel like
they're horrible sentences.
Really? Because I think about it like this. Like that's how I envision. That's how I get enjoyment out of poetry, right? Is that like sometimes they write the words in a weird different way.
Okay, sure.
Or like it'll just be a sentence with words that sound vaguely like they're going somewhere, but are just really neat words to say together. And that's what I think like songwriting is probably something like that too, where it's like, you know, these words just sound really cool together. So he's like psycho groupie cocaine crazy sounds like that's a cool sentence. You know, I don't know if it's a sentence, but it's
it's not a sentence. It's a list.
Yeah. It's cool though. It's a cool list of words. Yeah, to me, at least.
Okay. I mean, maybe that's true.
I think, and also like I also Needles is the song, right? Where he says pushing little children with their fully automatics. They like to push the weak around.
Yes.
That's fucking nice.
Is it? I think it's Deer Dance.
Deer Dance. Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. That song has great fucking lyrics too. That's another one of those songs I actually love.
Invitation to peace, war staring you in the face.
What's Needles though, dude?
Needles is the like is when it's like very aggressive the entire song, and then in the middle of the song for no reason, because it's the one it's like pull the tapeworm out of your ass, hey, pull the tapeworm, and then out of nowhere it's like I'm sitting in my room.
I love that.
With the needle in my hand. Okay, let's talk. We haven't talked really.
I'm like hot. I'm feeling so good hearing those.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, we definitely have different views on this. So, okay, we haven't really talked about our own history with the album. Usually we get into that, but we just wanted to get so hot on the lyrics. So you said it took you a little while to get into it. What was going on at the time when in 2001 when you kind of first heard this album? Like you said, you didn't connect with their self-titled, but did you connect with this one right away? What was your experience?
So I think what happened, I think I'm being slightly wrong here because like I was downloading music already at that time.
Yeah, for sure. That would have been when that was like really picking up.
Yeah, I was on Napster and stuff at the time, and I had listened to Spiders and Sugar.
Right.
And had kind of gotten, I was like turning my mind on it. I think Spiders is like a really great, like it's a rearranged level song to me.
Spiders is a really good song. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just, oh my God. It's like Freddie Mercury type shit to me.
Yeah, that's fair. Sure.
But so I had sort of been turning on them, but Chop Suey came out and they played it on Hard Rock Radio, which you were basically stuck listening to if you were in a car, especially one of my cars, because I never had a CD player in my car.
Yeah.
I barely had heat in the fucking thing. So like, I heard Chop Suey and I was kind of blown away by it. I think I thought it sucked at first because I don't like fast songs like that.
Right.
Like even like Divine on the first Korn album. I'm like, I really like that fuck you, I'm fed up with you part, but I don't like any of the other stuff.
Okay.
You know, like I don't like the like I don't like that kind of singing.
Okay.
You know,
but that is like all System of a Down is.
Right. I had to be pulled into it because when he's like, I don't think you trust it, that's cool as shit. And when the guitar's going, I don't know. I think this is a band that also benefits really strongly with making you feel like I need to hear this in a mosh pit.
Right.
Like, because I always felt that way. It was like, this is like music for a mosh pit. Now, I don't know. The concert I saw of theirs, I've seen them twice, and there was a mosh pit, but that's Ohio. There's mosh pits at fucking everything here. People are going to mosh to like Weezer at the festival that me and Brett are planning to go to in July. People will mosh to anything. And it's like I wonder what their policy is. I wonder if they ever said their policy on that because it feels like they write music to mosh to. Like
System?
That's like
I would say. Yeah. I mean, I think the System concert I went to, there was definitely a mosh pit. I mean, they were really bad. I thought they were a really bad live band.
Same here. I ended up seeing them. See, I didn't get to see them on the Toxicity tour, and I think that might because they weren't a big priority band for me at the time. I had been making my transition out of nu metal, and I was like, I think I was listening to the Mars Volta so much.
Right. So I saw Mars Volta open for System of a Down.
I did too.
Yeah.
I went to that. That's the other time I saw them. Yeah. But like I think like at that time I felt like music needed to be more difficult anyway. Like I was, just getting into Radiohead.
Sure.
And like the Pixies. And I was learning about like old punk and older music that I had kind of missed out on, and I was really enjoying that. So I was kind of away. So I didn't see them until they toured with, I saw them once on Mesmerize and I hated it. And then I saw them again and I don't remember 1 second of it, and it's not the drugs. So it must not have been great.
Yeah, they weren't good. Like when I saw them, it was kind of like right before they broke up. It must have been like the Hypnotize Mesmerize tour or something like that. And I just remember thinking they definitely hated each other. Like they seemed like they were not having fun. Like they didn't move. They weren't into it. Like I've seen, I can't even count how many shows in my life, 500 probably. I've never seen a band so obviously mail it in. Like I'm sure I've seen bands that were having an off night that in their minds were like, I'm not into this crowd sucks, whatever. But there's been no show I've been to where it's been actually more obvious. Like I felt like they hated each other. They hated the crowd. They didn't want to be there. They were just like, yep, we're just cashing a check and see you later.
Right. I feel that way sometimes. I mean, now that I can look at it from a position of like having performed in front of audiences, I can kind of like that makes a lot more sense to me than in my brain was just like, you know, they were so what happened the first time I saw them that made me crazy, right? Was that Darren, I think it was, made a speech at the concert about how he thinks it's bullshit that MTV plays their videos, but the record company makes them make the videos, so they can't do anything. He's like explaining how it all works, you know? Cool. And it's just like, dude, like just don't make a fucking video. You know? Yeah, now that I'm here, I'm like, and he's like talking about it for like 5 minutes. He's talking about this while me and my brother at the concert. I just remember leaving and being like, well, that was like some real bad vibes up there. Like the whole thing was just bad. Like they seem genuinely angry about the business and their position in the world at that time.
Which is like, it's so hard to buy that from a band that's like playing a stadium. You know, like, oh, woe is me. Our career sucks. We hate our career trajectory. Like, shut up.
I mean, at that time, I think I would have felt that way. But at this point now, like I've done shows though, and I don't do this on purpose. I don't try to bomb ever. Like this is not like a thing I do. That's good. I would hope you don't try to bomb. Well, I mean, you hear a lot of comedians talk about like, you got to bomb every once in a while, you know? And like, I love it when I bomb. It makes me feel good. People are like walking out of the room. It's like adrenaline. And I'm like, no, I don't like that at all. But there are times, I mean, you were on a few shows with me that were like this, where it was like the crowd was having fun and they were enjoying the show, but they like didn't get rowdy at all. Like they were just like, we had, I mean, like in Seattle, they loved that show. They sang along with me and you, you know,
for sure.
But they never got to the point where they were chanting and screaming. And like, it was never like a crazy show. And I did the best I could. And I think we did okay.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Like,
yeah, you guys did great.
But like, maybe they were like subconsciously tanking something too.Maybe they got in there and were just like, this fucking, you know. I mean, when I saw them with Mars Volta, they played an arena and it was sparsely attended. I felt like the whole floor was filled up, but the whole top part didn't feel packed. And this was before we had like a 5,000 venue here in town,
right?
So like they had to play the Blue Jackets arena,
right? Yeah, here they played the Pacific Coliseum, which holds like 15,000, and it definitely was not full at all.
Yeah, and that's
actually they might have even played Rogers Arena. Fuck, I can't remember, but yeah,
I saw them at Nationwide Arena, and it was like, I don't know, man. I don't think that being on stage in an arena sounds cool at all.
Yeah, that's fair. It's definitely different. Maybe they didn't like it. I don't know, but it wasn't a great live show. But anyway,
I agree.
We can get back to the album.
I don't even want to see them now, though. You know, like after the two experience.
No, I don't either.
I actually, in 2011 or 12 or something like that, I got really into the Black Keys album.
Yeah.
The Thick Freakness, is that what it's called? The one that sounds like the Sonics, basically. And like a lot of garage rock. I got really into that album and I thought it just fucking slayed. And then I went and saw them in concert and like nothing about it connected with me.
Right.
You know, and I feel like that is what I would feel even seeing System of a Down now, where like it's been 2 times I've gone to this and I didn't feel like we were having any sort of connection. I felt like they could have put the Chuck E. Cheese animatronics up there and you guys could have just sat back on a couch backstage and played the music or whatever.
Yeah, you know? For sure. Because they did that. That's like what it was when I saw them too. They were just like standing there and it was very boring.
Yeah, and again, a heavy metal audience in Columbus, Ohio does not want to. I'm not speaking for everybody in that audience, but I don't think anybody wanted to hear a speech about the music industry at that show.
No. And especially from like a band that's supposedly like railing against major corporations and stuff. Like, I guess that's what he's kind of trying to do, but it's like the same time that also made you pretty famous. So
yeah, you're not playing this place if you're not
on MTV
dealing with a corporate. I mean, yeah, because I can't. Me and you, there are like 500 seat venues that you can't book here unless you're like a national act.
Oh, totally.
Like there's a corporation that holds on to like most of the venues in the city. That's why me and Brad have a hard time touring, because we have to find the place that isn't owned by Live Nation or something like that. And Live Nation owns 500 seat venues.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like they couldn't have been literally in an arena without Live Nation. But again, also on the other end of that, like if I signed a contract to do something and I had to fucking do it, I don't know. I wouldn't want to complain about it too much because I signed a contract, like a dream sort of job contract. I wouldn't want to complain too much in front of people like that about that. I mean, there's so many better political causes to talk about to an audience full of people who may or may not understand that you're talking about politics in the prison song.
Totally. No, for sure. And I agree. It just seems very strange. And maybe he did that when I saw them too. I don't really remember, but yeah, it was just
a bummer.
It is a bummer. Let's get to the rest of the album. Speaking of this, you told me, sorry, go ahead.
I want to ask you also, like, are they touring this year?
System?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're touring. I know that they're doing like those festivals or whatever.
Ugh. Everybody, I can't believe Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down are doing festivals. So they're doing festivals though?
Let me see here. System of a Down tour. Because they definitely like broke up. But yeah, it looks like they're doing a European tour in June. And then
these people just like to go to Europe, man.
Exactly. Well, they're playing a bunch of festivals too. Like they're playing Rock im Park and Rock im Ring, Download Festival, iDays Festival, and then but it's like all Europe. That's the only things on their website. But I know that there's that festival in Columbus they're playing. Like they were on the poster.
Sonic Temple.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I wonder if they found their love of the thing again. You know, I wonder if they. I guess so. Like I wonder if they like each other.
I don't think I don't think so.
I mean, if there was that much bad blood that it tore apart the thing that got us to the dance, sort of thing. Like if me and Brett had bad blood like that, I would never let it go at that point.
Yeah.
I'm just like. I trust that guy so much. I'd like trust them with my life. And you know that they felt that same way when they were playing DIY clubs or anything like that. Like I would do anything for these. I can't wait to be like successful with these guys. It's like this really wonderful thing. Like what has to happen? What kind of things deteriorated that relationship to a point where they couldn't even do the thing that they loved and they had to stop doing it and just fall off the map, you know?
Yeah, it seemed like they were pretty egotistical. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to in a lot of these situations, right? It seemed like Darren and Serge had a pretty big power struggle. Like there's even times where they're talking about, there's this one of the articles that I pulled up from the actual time period. They were talking about how they like beat each other up in the studio and stuff.
Jesus
like
Christ.
that Chavo and John would get like mad at each other and like get in actual fist fights in the studio. And so you're like, did they actually like each other or like at any point, or is this just like something they're saying to sound cool? Like, yeah, we fucking kick the shit out of each other, man. Like whatever.
That does make them sound cool if you're not a performer, I guess.
Yeah, probably. They were scrapping so hard for this, you know.
Yeah, for me, it's dumb. Like I'm thinking about it now, just with my experience, and I work only exclusively with partners. and like I don't do anything on my own, really. I don't do stand up by myself or anything like that. And just I would never even set myself up to be in a position with somebody that I thought I would feel that way about ever. And I guess it's like touring together at times can get claustrophobic, you know, if you're doing a lot of touring with people, it can feel like claustrophobic. It's like, fuck, it's just me and you all the fucking time. We're spending, you know, all this time together. But I never feel like fighting or anything like that. I'm never like annoyed about it. Right. It's kind of like, you know, I'd rather be around my wife at my house.
Yeah, of course. Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think this is one of those things that if you were 17 or 18 or even like 25 or, you know, just if I was younger, I would see this as like very interesting people doing a very interesting thing. You know, where it's like, oh, man, it probably makes the music better. But now as somebody who's looking at it through the lens of a performer, it's like, no, it didn't make it better. It's like the quality of stuff like deteriorated.
Yeah, maybe it's like if
the
that's,
relationship did.
If that's like only what you know, maybe. Where you're like, we always have this adversarial relationship and we had a bunch of success while we were being at each other's throats. So that's like what is successful for us. Or
like
that's
a
like
team
what makes
of
us
rivals.
work. Yeah.
Like a team of rivals situation, like Abraham Lincoln. I think Serge Tankian's as smart as Abraham Lincoln. I'm just going to throw that out there. He probably knows more. Actually, I bet Serge Tankian knows more than Abraham Lincoln.
The internet was around in 2001, so probably. So here's my system of a down theory, Brian. I'll throw this out to you because we were talking before we recorded this about how we both have system of a down theories. So this is my system of a down theory, and I've tweeted this actually, and I have to say, I tweeted this like probably 2 years ago, and it got a lot of positive reinforcement. But my theory is that System of a Down is a very confusing band because they have like 10 amazing songs, 10 pretty good songs, and 140 awful songs, really bad songs.
Man, I'm with you on like, I mean, I guess it's like a legacy act in a way, because if we start counting good songs to bad songs,
it's bad. But that's
new metal.
Well, for sure. But I'm just thinking, like, to me, it's funny that saying that, if you look at Toxicity, I feel like Toxicity even fits into that model. Like, I feel like this album has like 3 amazing songs, 3 pretty good songs, and then like 9 bad songs.
I think the only song that I have any kind of problem or weirdness with is the song Science.
Sure. Science has failed our world.
Yeah, I don't like that song, but I don't even know what it is about it. I don't like. I think it just kind of feels like it does feel actually nice now that I think. I just remember back then being like, this guy doesn't like fucking science. What's his fucking problem?
What's his problem?
But now I'm thinking about it and I was like, he's kind of right. You know?
Right. You're like, what's his problem with Incubus?
Yeah, but they don't even have like, I guess like they don't, I would say I think pretty much all these songs are like Hall of Fame level songs.
Really?
On Toxicity. I really do.
See,
I really do.
For me, it's like Chop Suey, Forest, and Toxicity are like the 3 amazing songs. And then Prison Song, Aerials, and Deer Dance are like pretty good. And then all the rest are like, who cares?
Oh, Ottawa is so good.
And
I think
fine.
Aerials is like a top song. What?
Yeah,
you don't like Ottawa?
It's okay.
All the world I've seen before me passing by.
You don't care about how I feel. I don't feel it anymore. I don't know. It's just all their songs are just... Some of them, and Aerials I had as a pretty good song, Brian. I said it was in the pretty good category. I didn't say it's bad. Aerials to me is them being like, we need a song to close out the record. Can we write something that's like kind of wistful?
Really? You feel that way about Aerials?
Yeah, because it's like it's really different from every. It's just that doodle doodle doodle.
It's their ballad. It's like Heaven by Warrant.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
I know it is their ballad, but that's what I'm saying though. Is like, to me, it felt like they didn't want it. It was like, oh, maybe we should try and close this record with like something like a little more. Like, it sounds good. It just doesn't sound like what System of a Down was good at or was like trying to do. Like, to me, it seems like a label thing or a Rick Rubin thing, being like, hey, you know what would be really cool is like if we kind of wrap this album off with something like a little bit slower, a little bit more, got a little more groove to it, you know. Like,
I think the songs exist on this album exist in kind of categories, because Aerials and Toxicity, same energy. Those are the same energy.
Well, but Toxicity's got the really like it's got that very jarring chorus though. Like, yes, it's got the really like chill verse, but the chorus is very aggressive, whereas Aerials doesn't have that.
You know what I think? Here's what I think about the difference between like I think we like different kinds of lyrics.
Oh, I'm positive that we like different kinds of lyrics. Yeah, because
that's what I'm starting to get to, because I really like eating seeds is a pastime activity. Like, I like slow shit. That's almost all my favorite songs like a slow song.
You brought out your Eddie Vedder voice for that.
Yeah, I can't do all the world I've seen before me passing my eye.
He was eating seeds as a pastime activity.
I can't sing. I suck at voices so bad.
No, it's fine.
I can do 0 impressions except for Eddie Vedder, and the only reason I can do that is because every time I do sound check at a venue, I sing Black by Pearl Jam and Yellow Ledbetter by Pearl Jam.
Well, Eddie Vedder's pretty easy because you just make your voice as deep as possible and then just like skip a couple syllables
and like, add an R to the end of the song.
Yeah, because he doesn't actually skip syllables when he sings, but if you sing it like that, people think like, oh yeah, that's how he sings. Like if you're like, like you just skip the K and spoke. Like he says spoke, but if you're just like then people are like, oh yeah, he does sing like that, but he doesn't. Yeah. But it sounds like it's an impression, and people are like, oh yeah, okay, that's good.
It's like doing Christopher Walken, like, hey, but I don't like know anything else that Christopher Walken.
Yeah. That famous thing Christopher Walken always says, hey.
Yeah, hey. Like a half a second here, okay?
Dude, you're doing great.
Hey, I'm not filling out the census. That's my...
People say that Christopher Walken's like one of the easier impressions to do, but I feel like you're proving them wrong.
Well, good luck. I can't do
a Christopher Walken either, for the record.
I can't do I think the fact that I can't do the voice and Toxicity at all makes me respect it more too.
Right, sure.
Because
honestly, you didn't sound that far off. He definitely goes to like a little bit of a deeper register. Eating scenes as a pastime activity.
You did it Italian.
Yes, but he has that kind of like an activity. It's a me. System of a Down.
No, I hate the Eddie Vedder voice, and
to be honest, Darren Malakian is Toad to me. Every time Darren Malakian shows up on a song, I'm just hearing whoa 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 whoa.
I think the voice. I think that's Serge's voice, right? The eating
that's Serge for sure. Right? Darren is always the like Muppet sounding guy. He's the like, who about my crack? I smack my bitch right here in Hollywood.
I mean, that's not bad.
And
it sounds like
I'm sitting in my room with a needle in my hand. He sounds like he's like a small monster in a horror movie.
Okay. like a troll that's holding onto a bridge sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. I'm hanging off this bridge. Won't you please bring me back onto the bridge? I'll give you 3 wishes. Like, that's what he sounds like to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's so weird. I'm conflicted too because I feel like I'm defending the album like way too much. You know, like I'm not even making fun of it at all, I guess. Or sometimes I am. Whatever.
You are. We are. It's okay.
But I feel like I'm defending the shit out of it. And it's like, I do think that largely this thing is goofy as shit.
It is, like, for sure. That was their whole thing. I
can't believe how much it, I don't know. I guess it didn't inspire me to do anything politically at all. I didn't end up doing anything political until 16 years after it.
Yeah, it was a slow burn. You like woke up in the middle of the night one night. You're like, they're trying to build a prison.
At some point, they got it through my thick skull.
And then you called Brett after you woke up from a nightmare. They're trying to build a prison. And then you're like, oh, Brett, hey, remember how we talked about maybe doing a thing together? I was thinking about how they're always building prisons, and we should do something, man.
Do a show about prisons.
Yeah, let's do a prison show. I feel like it's just this album was weird for me because I think of the 4 albums we've done so far, we've done Korn, we've done Limp Bizkit, we've done Deftones, we've done Linkin Park. I think like going back and listening to all of them, they all really they all held up for me in ways that like it just like there's a nostalgic feel when I listen to it. And they all kind of hold up in a way where I'm like, I remember where I was when I listened to this. I still think that there's some legitimately good songs on this record. In the case of Korn self-titled, I was almost surprised at how well I thought it held up, aside from the production. But the songs, like I was like, holy shit, like I didn't realize that every song on this album is really good. This is the first one we've gone back to that I legitimately, like I loved this album. Like from 2001 when this came out until the Hypnotize, Mesmerize, like I would have, if you asked me who my favorite band was, they would have been one of the answers. Like I would have been like, oh yeah, like I really like Dredge, Korn, Deftones, System of a Down. Like they would have been in that conversation of like my favorite bands. And this is one record that I went back and listened to it and I was like, oh man, like this is really, some of this is pretty hard to listen to. It's
really,
I
listened to it like 7 times in a row one day, just back to back to back. Like last Tuesday, I listened to it 7 fucking times, and the whole time I was listening to it, it didn't get old, not even for a second. And I don't think it's even one of my favorite albums of all time. I don't think it is. It might be one of my favorite nu metal albums of all time, or one of them, and like it's top 6 maybe.
Right.
So 5, I guess, is what that means.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not. I mean, 5 sounds even more impressive. Like it would be like number 11.
Like, don't get me wrong. When we're doing this podcast this time next year, and we're talking about like Coal Chamber and fucking Spine Shank and shit like that, I'm going to be like, okay, yeah, System of a Down is still pretty good, but like. It's not that it's bad, like obviously, and there's songs on it I still totally love, like, and I really think are good. But even for me, like Chop Suey, like that was a legitimately like life-changing song for me. Not in the sense of, pardon me, anything that was like happening in my life, but just of the like musically, like I heard that and I was like, holy fuck. Like it just sounded like nothing I'd ever heard before. The way that it went like loud, quiet was just like loud, quiet. Like it was just not like nothing I'd really listened to at that point. It sounded so unique to me. And I remember thinking like, wow, what a phenomenal song. And listening back to it now, I'm like, it's good. But I don't have that same feeling of like, wow, this is truly, And maybe that's just how things are. You know, I'm older now. It's 18 years after this album came out. Maybe that's just how life works. But that just, it just didn't hit me in the same way that it did when I was younger, when I was listening to this. And I can remember like girls liked System of a Down too. Like that's what's so weird to me about this record. Like it went to number 1 on the Billboard 200. I can remember driving around in my friend Jen's car listening to this record, and she liked it as much as I did, and she knew all the words and like whatever. You know, like it wasn't a record of its time. Like people really, really liked it. I just think that this record is almost harder to sell to people who have never heard, like people who've never heard nu metal. I feel like this would be a hard record to sell to them. I feel like they'd hear the lyrics, the way the songs are structured, and it feels more of its time than some other stuff. Even though I know people like hate and shit on Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff, I think there's like a groove and an elements of those bands that help them hold up better today than this record does, I think.
You know, I can kind of agree. I don't know, actually. But I think like if I look at Korn and Limp Bizkit and Spine Shank and Coal Chamber and like all those bands that I legit stained, you know, like I loved so many of these bands. And I look at them as like a part of my life or a time where I look more at this album as like it feels like I don't know, it's like a classic rock album to me.
Right.
In my mind, it's like I can put this thing on. I don't think my daughter would like I don't think my daughter would like this at all, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, totally not.
I also hold it up as one of the things that got me to look at music differently, because you're right about like Chop Suey and a few of the other things just didn't sound like anything else I'd been listening to at the time. And I think it helped to open my mind to other sounds in a way. I've given Deftones a lot of credit for this too. It's like those are the System of a Down and Deftones, I think, were the two bands doing the most interesting stuff at the time.
Yeah, it definitely stood out in the genre, no question.
Yeah, and the other bands were I'm not saying the other bands weren't good, but I feel like those two bands worked hardest to make it something that would last forever. And I think they both have succeeded at that. You know, because I mean, you're in the minority when it comes to Toxicity. Really, most people are gonna say like they like have very strong feelings of love for this album.
Sure, yeah, I might get yelled at for sure.
You are. I mean, maybe I don't know. Like, I hopefully it sounds like you like it.
Oh, I still like it. I definitely still like it, and I can listen to it. And I think like the good songs are very, very good. And like to me, Toxicity, like I said, Forest too. I remember Forest kind of being my like under the radar favorite song on this album when I was younger, and I still felt that way like listening to it back through again for this podcast. Toxicity too is such a weird, like the way that the loud quiet loud works in that song is so different. I think like as a drummer, the way that the Toxicity chorus hits, like it makes no sense as the chorus of a popular song. Like the song has this very melodic guitar part. Serge is basically singing in some kind of like very operatic type way in his like sort of deep voice, and then the song essentially completely stops. Like the nice part of the song, like the bottom of the song just falls out, and then the first thing you hear is just like no one starts the chorus of a song with a drum solo. And then for Serge to fit the lyrics to kind of like play off of that drum fill, the cascading like what do you own the world? How do you own disorder? Like it's crazy. Like it was just a really unique way of structuring a song that no band was doing at the time. And you know, even since, I mean, obviously there's bands that do that stuff now, but I remember that at the time, like you can't imagine that that's a song that was popular, that people were like, oh, this is cool. And it was like massively popular. It was. I think I think it pushed some people to, I think it really pushed me to like At the Drive-In and the Mars Volta, especially. I don't think I get to the Mars Volta without Deftones, Radiohead, and System of a Down. For sure.
I think like sort of the mix.
Definitely when you're talking about drums, like that makes perfect sense, right? When you're thinking about drums really hitting hard and forming the backbones of songs. I mean, I think the Mars Volta, that was a huge thing for them, but they're also more of like a prog / jam band. So it makes more sense. Like System of a Down were trying to write rock, like mass appealing rock songs, but they were doing it in such a unique way that for sure I'll always have respect for that. And like I said, I still like it. It just was one that I felt like, oh, okay, there's songs on here that, I'll put it this way. There are songs on here that I would be totally fine if I never heard them again in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even mean that in a bad way. It just happens to be like when I was listening to the album, I'd be like, okay, this song's fine, but like, I don't need to hear it. And then you get to the next song and be like, okay, say like, this is fine. Then, like I say, every couple songs, you're like, okay, no, this is a good song. This is a banger. I'm into this. But then, and then it goes back to like, okay, like and I think with System of a Down too, they were working with even though it was so unique, I think their palette was pretty limited. Like they were kind of painting with the same brush in a lot of the songs. So I think in some ways it starts to blend together too. The songs that don't really stick out, a lot of them have that kind of like da 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 da, like it's that really kind of that just hard woo structure.
Yeah. They also like, I am looking at what the songs were about, and they're kind of, here's what they are. They're the Joker. Like they're a band that is the Joker. That they appeal to the same thing that I think for me, they appeal to me in the same way that I like that Joker movie that everybody hated, where it's like, it's just, it's about twisted. It's a bunch of twisted things just happening because they think it's neat to be twisted, like the song Ottawa is about Charles Manson's beliefs on the environment. That is what that song is about.
Right.
And it's like, these guys were here's what they were in the end. They were like some guys that probably were pretty competitive and wanted to make something that sounded absolutely fucking twisted, dude.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way of like we sort of clowned on Korn for like doing like talking about nursery rhymes and being like, hey, you know what, if you like kind of checked out these nursery rhymes, like they're pretty dark. Like I kind of feel like System of a Down has a little bit of that sort of wink wink nudge nudge too, of like, have you guys really like read up on Charles Manson? Like, he might have been like not bad. Like it's
Malakian has said that Charles Manson is in jail for the wrong reasons. I think he had an unfair trial, was his quote. So he's just like, check out how fucking nuts I am, dude.
That's
Yeah. I think fucking Charles Manson's cool. I think
yeah. You won't even believe it. I've got a really long chin beard, and I think Charles Manson maybe had some okay ideas. So how about that? How about that? Put that in your pipe and smoke it, okay? They're trying to build a prison, all right? And guess who's in that prison? Charles Manson. Think about that.
What a crummy interviewer or article writer this is. He didn't even ask like, oh, really? Why do you think that?
No, why?
Like I want to sit down with him and be like, I saw here that you think Charles Manson's in jail for the wrong reasons, which is even weird because who fucking cares? He's in jail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it doesn't make any sense.
Who cares what the reason was?
Yeah. No, it's so weird. Do you want to talk about the album art before we get into the articles? Okay, tell me how you feel about the album art.
It's bad, I think.
Yeah.
I don't like it very much. I think it's like the least creative idea you could come up with for an album recorded in Hollywood.
Well, especially because that's the whole thing, right? Is like the album's called Toxicity because it's about different toxic views and ideas permeating our culture, but also they all live in Los Angeles and it's a toxic city, man.
That's crazy. Los Angeles is the best city in the world.
Well,
it is.
Well,
yes.
Okay.
It's the best fucking place
it sounds
in the
like
entire world.
Sounds like someone who spent their whole life in Columbus, but
yes. Well, maybe, but I've been to so many different places now,
yes,
and no place is better than Los Angeles, baby.
All right, we'll agree to disagree.
It's so warm there.
Yeah, but that's, You can find
90% of what makes me happy, and then the other 10% is legal weed and palm trees.
Okay, but there's lots of like Caribbean nations you could get that from.
Yeah, but I mean, Los Angeles also, people like me there. I think that's a big plus in the Los Angeles.
It's column. It's like the Cheers theme song, but in your case, it's the second largest city in North America. Everybody knows my name in Los Angeles.
But people like me in New York too.
Yeah, okay.
But it gets cold there.
True. So
Los Angeles, baby. I always had the most fun there of all the cities we go to.
That's fair. Oh, for sure. If you got to visit somewhere, I mean, hell yeah, it's obviously pretty wild place to visit.
I would hate to be I guess like people that live in LA complain about LA all the time.
Yeah, of course they do.
It's like part of like the LA culture. When people say that LA doesn't have like a real distinct culture, one of the things is that they say like this fucking city is hell.
It's toxic, man. It's a toxic city.
Yeah. I don't know. This album art seems like something that like came out because like Photoshop made some strides that year. And somebody was just like, I'll fucking Photoshop you a nice little thing together and you'll have, because it doesn't look like a major label release. Well, I
think to me what it is like, and this is kind of, and I think people would have the same criticism of Rage Against the Machine. It's the sort of idea that we're doing this album that's politically charged and we're talking about politics, and we're just gonna make it really clear what we're doing. You know, like I feel like a lot of bands that are political leaning and just people in general, you know, there tends to be some subtlety, some subliminal kind of messaging happening, whereas System of a Down's like, hey, just in case you weren't sure what we were talking about, we're going to make the Hollywood sign our band name, and we're going to name it Toxicity, just so you're aware while you're listening to this that, hey, we're thinking about LA, man. We're thinking about America, dude. You know, and that's the kind of thing that I don't love so much about it. I think a lot of bands were kind of going for this at the time, and maybe some bands still go for it on their album art where they're like kind of trying to explain their band or the album with the art. But this just feels like really like, this is what we're doing, man.
Yeah, I mean, nu metal was very like Southern California. Like at the beginning, like a lot of nu metal came from there. It wasn't like super Midwestern until it had been like going off out there. Then every band in the world, Shinedown, popped up. Right. You know, it was just like at the time, it was like the whole thing was emanating from LA, which I then think if you're from LA, it gives you credibility in other, like a place like Columbus, where I was like, these fucking LA bands are so cool, man. They're out doing like LA stuff. I never thought I was going to go to that city in my life at the time, but I was just like, I get what they're talking about with the LA stuff. You know, it's the same thing with Sublime, where I would listen to it and be like, yeah, man, you know, LA is like a cool, like they're all cool there, man. It's like a more laid back city than a lot of people think it is. And I was just like, saying that in Columbus, Ohio.
Well, I think too, it's like, even if you don't live in LA, you can understand what it embodies. Like the metaphor is very obvious. You're like, I don't live in LA, but I kind of get what they're about in LA. So this makes sense to me. Okay. Do we want to talk about some of these articles, or did you take a look at them? I already talked about the Rick Rubin thing. I got this interview with Serge Tankian that's extremely funny just because seems like a total insufferable guy to talk to.
I mean, you got stuff from that one. I read these interviews like last week, and I was out Christmas shopping before we did this. But I think like what I got from them was like sort of that's what helped me develop my like critique of the album,
right?
You know,
right?
And I think I probably should have saved quotes instead of doing that.
No, it's all good. It was just very funny to me too, because again, I feel like this is the sort of thing where System of a Down was really again going for the like, we're mysterious dudes, we have unique opinions, listen to us. Like this interview with Serge is just like totally insufferable.
I mean, John, I think me and you have like a fundamental difference in that I like really confident dumb guys a lot. Like, they're my favorite kind of guys in the whole world.
Okay.
No, they're unparalleled in greatness, in my opinion.
Okay.
It's the two best personality traits you can put together.
Well, Surge has them both. Because to me, again, like you were saying, Rage seems like a band that read 5 books. Like Surge comes across like that. Like to me, Surge is like, yeah, I took 2 political science classes and I was born in Lebanon and I'm of Armenian descent. And here's some things. Like, so he says, he was also 33 in 2001, which is wild to me. So he's over 50 now. And
right. I mean, that though, I think that got them somewhere in a way. Because I remember being like, System of a Down is the band that has the old dude as the lead singer.
Yeah, they're old.
He looked so much older than everybody else. And then, probably a part of me saw them and was like, see, you can still make it when you're an old motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. You can be a mature man and make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
33 isn't that. I mean, 33 when you hit is probably 1,000 times better than 23.
For sure. Oh, yeah. You could balance it way better. But yeah, they set up the interview by saying that even though System of a Down's sound is often aggressive and menacing, in person, the affable 33-year-old Tankian exudes a zen-like calm. In song, he often growls and hollers with what sounds like rage, but Tankian insists that he's not nearly as pissed off as he sounds. I'm just climaxing the communication, he says.
See here,
what are we talking about? Are you
half of that is really good though? Like half of that to me is like, oh, okay, that's just what like people who do things that seem angry. I do it, where I'm like, yes, I'm Murder Bryan. Yes, my partner's Brett Payne, and yes, the show's called Street Fight Radio. But we're like not mean, and we're not actually fighting. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I can see where like I say that a lot in interviews where it's like you're trying to explain to people like, no, this isn't like dark. Don't worry about it. It's safe. You can come in here. And I think that's kind of what he was trying to do, where he was like, he was appealing to like academic types,
Yes, for sure. So these are the questions that he's answering. He says, what makes you unhappy? Hypocrisy, injustice. How do you counter those things? I love. That's it? Yeah. You're a pretty philosophical dude.
Oh God. I hate, 2 things I hate.
What?
Huey Lewis in the News.
Okay.
and white elephant gift exchanges. Those are the 2 things that I hate.
Okay. Good to know. But
it sucks.
How do you counter those things, Bryan?
It sucks that guy sat down. I don't actually hate Huey Lewis in the News. It's just like it sucks that like that guy was writing an interview and he asked him that and that's the answer he gave.
For sure. And Surge continues this. So he says, you're a pretty philosophical dude. I don't think so, but I do like falafel sandwiches. Falafel?
Oh, God, I hate him.
I told you. Falafel? It's the closest thing to philosophy. Falafel.
Oh, my God, I would hate him.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad.
He reminds me of a certain kind of guy that I'm like insulated from now that would like back you into a corner in a conversation and then say a bunch of stuff but it doesn't make any sense. And then he'd be like, you know what I mean though, right? And you're like, no, I don't know. And he's like, well, and then he explains it again. And he's like, see, makes sense. And it's like, no, it's still because like at the core of what you're saying, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, Bryan, just exactly what you said manifests itself in the very next question and answer. It's so funny that you said this. It's almost like you set this up without knowing. Toxicity has a song protesting mandatory minimum prison sentences for drug offenders, as well as one about sympathizing with Charles Manson. Do you consider System a political band? I don't understand why we have to be just one thing. If I write on one side of this lampshade, the metropolis is too dense, it causes fear, that's a social statement. And on this side, I write, blow me. And then here it says, I'm hungry. And here it says, gee, what a splendid day. Now, those are four different things. We're all just turning the lampshade. Should I see the whole thing as political because the first statement was political?
See, he's he's technically right. You know what I mean? Like, he's saying the right thing in the most infuriating way possible.
100%.
Like, it's just like, I get what you're saying, dude. Like, I agree with pretty much everything you say, but the way that you say it makes me actually mad.
Yeah, and then he goes on, he kind of mimics what Darren was talking about at your concert. Do you care much about whether people will like what you're doing? No, absolutely not. If only 50 people buy your next album, great. That'll get me out of my record deal, and then I could do other things. That would be totally cool. Obviously, based on the world we live in, success is positively earmarked. Financial success, and there are definite advantages to that. But ultimately, you got to do what's inside of you, what your art is, what your passion is, what your essence is. The rest is just tossed to the wind. If the wind takes it to many ears, fine. If it doesn't, fine.
Oh, he doesn't really feel that way, though.
No, of course he doesn't.
You know?
And that's the thing that really like pisses me off a little bit about System is like you read these and then you listen to the songs and you're like, okay, what are we doing here? Are you just trying to monetize being political?
Yeah. Well, probably. I think Serge really does believe in this because he's done a lot of great shit, you know, like left shit, you know.
For sure.
Like, I also think that I do think a certain part of them like is a shit. I think maybe when you're a guy like this, like the kind of mainstream success that they had probably fucks you up, like fucks your brain up, you know, especially at 33. Like, you've made it to 33 and you still think it's okay to be like, philosophy is actually a falafel. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm surprised that wasn't a lyric on the album.
I mean, I don't think I've heard every one of their songs, but I think like, I think like, it probably is super fucked up to get. I don't think these guys don't make music that I think they thought they were going to get famous with. No,
that's true.
I guess is what I'm saying. Like 12 million.
I am very surprised that they got famous off of it. So
right. I'm sure that they were super. I mean, 12 million albums is like a Herculean task. You know, it's like one of the top ones, and having this super acclaimed album that is also mainstream popular is just, I can't imagine that's what they thought when they were writing like pogo, 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 bounce. You know?
Yeah, no, you're right. Okay, well, let's get to our rating system of this album. So when we rate the album, our rating score is we give it a tweet defense score. So if someone tweeted at you that they didn't like this album, this is how many tweets you would go back and forth with them defending it. So Bryan, what is your tweet defense score of Toxicity by System of a Down?
I need to like write my scores down.
I know,
for the other
to
albums.
Have some like relation.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking in my mind now, and I was on Xanax on one of these shows. I was on weed on this one, especially. I'm very high. So like I don't know what I would say is that I would go to bat. I would take a legitimate shot and go to bat for this album, and I am going to give it. I don't think here's what I want to say before I give the number. I think that this album exists right under Korn, the first Korn album, and Deftones Around the Fur and Deftones White Pony. I think this is like in that world. That's what I'm trying to get to. And I'm going to say 15. I would do 15 tweets to defend this.
This guy's going nuts.
I just think this is one of the most. I know that you like have you feel like it's like this scattershot thing, but I kind of feel like this is like one full vision played out in an album, you know?
Okay. I can respect it. I like it. I just think we're gonna have a big gap here because I'm gonna say 2.
And
no. It's honestly, and here's why. It's not even that I think the album is bad. Like, I know that 2 maybe connotes that I think it's bad. I don't actually think it's bad, but here's how I see an interaction going. Okay. Someone tweets at me and they go, hey, Toxicity completely sucks. It's the worst fucking album I've ever heard. And I would go, no, there's no way it's the worst album you've ever heard when it has songs as good as Chop Suey and Toxicity on it. And then they would go, okay, fair enough, but all the rest of the songs suck shit. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I could see why you have that opinion. And then it's over. Like, and it doesn't even mean I think that all the rest of the songs are like really, really bad. I could just, if someone told me that they liked a couple of the songs on it and then hated all the rest of them, I'd be like, okay, I feel like that's a very valid opinion to have about System of a Down.
Yeah, and I want to make this clear that I'm giving this a number that is very high because, again, I forget the other numbers that I gave the other albums, and I'm trying to denote that I see this one in very fucking, like, I see this one in shining terms. You know what I mean? No. Like, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm seeing it as, like, one of the greats, just not like my favorite. That's fair. It's like, I guess, like, let's just I'll put it in like a 1 to 10 list, and let's just, I'm going to be totally honest here. I could see this thing being number 6, like, of all of my favorite nu metal albums.
That's good.
No,
that's, so, I respect that. And that's fair. And I would say for me, like, if we're just talking nu metal albums, I would say it's in my top 10. I just think that as it's aged, it's aged poorly, or more from like more poor than others for sure.
Yeah, so it went from like 6 to 10.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, at one time I probably would have had it in my top 3. Like, it would have been up there with. It would have been up there with like Follow the Leader and Significant Other, and this I would have been like, okay, that's my because I came to Deftones late. Like, I probably came to Deftones after this album came out. So then, but then yeah, it's like once you get into Deftones, and it's like, okay, we got to make some more room for Deftones. And then obviously I love Linkin Park, so that Linkin Park would have pushed them down, and that, like, so. But yeah, I would say it's still in my top 10 for sure. I mean, there's not that many good nu metal albums after all.
yeah. I mean, I just, to me, this is classic rock, and this is like kind of, I think this is how my dad feels when he like listens to his whatever Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah,
to me,
that's fair. No, I totally get that.
And songs are just so goofy anyway. Like, songs are always goofy to me. Like, I don't know if I think that any of them aren't.
That's fair. Yeah, I think like you said, you like the kind of musicality and just the fun of some of the lyrics. And I think if that's how you can interpret the lyrics and just enjoy the kind of musicality of it, I could see how it would be pretty easy to just overlook that they're kind of stupid and
bad. I mean, because they are stupid. I will say that, like, I read these interviews last week, and I kind of was like, this song, these guys sound like incredibly stupid, but I think that like over the week, it's kind of popped out of my head. And even just hearing what you said, it's like, well, that kind of makes like Psycho Groupie Cocaine Crazy sound like a little bit less cool to me,
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me.
Like, they seem like guys. I don't want to say this because, like, it sounds like I'm like putting their politics down, and I think they've done like a lot of great activism, and I think that they've like raised awareness of things, and they've done a lot of stuff. But it also just makes them kind of like Jim Morrison in a way to me, where it's just like, okay, but like they did do all that, but still, like, these songs are like stupid.
Yeah. At the end of the day, these songs are stupid, and we are stupid too.